found to the seat in 2017, following Chris Ross's retirement. Prior to his appointment, Smith has served as an assistant district attorney in the district for 28 years, including a stint as the first assistant district attorney. He has tried hundreds of cases over the years and has been recognized with numerous advocacy awards. Smith has also provided professional training for other attorneys and law enforcement officers. He and his wife, Joy, have 3 children and 4 grandchildren. It's an honor to introduce Paul Smith. The next candidate is Josh Edwards. Josh is a candidate for district attorney for Judicial District 22, which includes also Pontotoc, Seminole, and Hughes counties. He is only 33 years old and has worked as an attorney in private practice in Ada for 8 years. He is married to Amanda Edwards, who has completed her master's degree in ECU as an elementary special education teacher. Josh has earned his bachelor's degree in criminology and graduated in the top 25% in his law school at OU. Josh represented more than 700 people in federal, tribal, and state courts. He is an officer of the Ada Lions Club and has provided legal education training to other attorneys as well. His articles have been published in the Oklahoma Bar Journal and American Indian Law Review. By filing to run, Josh has caused the first election for district attorney in 28 years. Ladies and gentlemen, Josh Edwards.
Gentlemen, thank you for being here with us tonight. We're going to give each of you a chance to give a brief opening remarks for us, but as you do so, we have 2 questions, one that's directed to each one of you. Mr. Edwards, we'll start with you. As you introduce yourself, there have been some allegations that you have very limited experience and really are not qualified for the district attorney's office. Would you tell us why you think you are qualified?
Sure. Well, first, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I don't think I've ever seen this auditorium as full today as it is. I appreciate being invited for Constitution Day, and I'll tell you, the reason why I filed was to give all of you in this room a voice. That is something that frankly our community has been deprived of for 28 years. 1990 was the last time the office of district attorney was on the ballot. I'm in private practice here in Ada. I've been doing that for 8 years, and during that time I noticed many areas of improvement in our district, or that are needed in our district attorney's office. Whenever I announced my candidacy, whenever I filed to run on April 13th, there were more than 20 criminal jury trials pending just in Pontotoc County. Our court system has a budget to try about 3 a year. When I filed, Oklahoma was #1 per capita in incarceration. My opponent's county, where he hails from, Seminole County, is #2 in per capita incarceration among the 77 counties in the state of Oklahoma. Folks, our state is in crisis. Concerning Mr. Draper's point about qualifications, I believe I'm uniquely qualified for this position. I offer a different perspective to the district attorney's office. I've practiced in federal courts, in state courts, and tribal courts. I've represented folks in criminal trials, civil trials, and juvenile trials. The district attorney is charged with not just prosecuting criminal cases that occur in the county, but he's also charged with representing the county in any civil litigation, whether the county is filing suit against someone or whether somebody sues the county. Civil trial experience matters too, and that's something that's been missing from our district attorney's office. That's something that I offer and that I bring. And frankly, I provide the office a fresh start. What I want to bring to this office, for the first time in a very long time, is the opportunity for the community to weigh in on exactly the type of leadership that it expects from its officers. The district attorney, every action that the district attorney makes or doesn't make, reflects upon this community. There's been books written about our district attorney's office. Pontotoc County has a certain reputation, and I think it's time that we change that. And I think that whenever I look at justice, whenever I look at what, frankly, the reason why I became an attorney, I think that upon the pursuit of justice, it requires that we look towards the truth. and try to determine exactly what happened and then act justly. I haven't seen that in our district attorney's office. That's why I filed to run. Concerning trial experience particularly, at the time I filed, my opponent and I had something in common. We'd each tried the same number of jury trials in the last 8 years. We'd each tried 7. I won 6. More than 700 people chose to trust me to represent them. And the difference between being an attorney in private practice versus being a career government lawyer is the one-on-one accountability you have with a client. My client sits next to me at counsel's table. They see exactly the level of representation and advocacy that I provide for them in the courtroom. They wouldn't stand if I stood in front of the court and said, "Your Honor, I'm not ready for this preliminary hearing because I forgot to subpoena witnesses." And that's something I've seen from our prosecutors. As district attorney, I want to change this. I want to have a policy that victims of crime are notified, at least by the district attorney's office, at least once a month, to be apprised of what's going on in the case, when the next court date is, and if there's a continuance, the reason for the continuance. I believe that just providing that measure of accountability can help correct some of these issues and some of these problems that we've had. I want to get to the root of the cause of why we're number 1 globally now in incarceration. And folks, that rests on the backs of prosecutors. I've seen cases where our prosecutors have recommended 10 years in prison because of 1 joint's worth of marijuana. I've also seen cases where prosecutors recommended no prison time for violent sexual assault, and this doesn't make any sense. I think we need better consistency, better accountability in the district attorney's office, and I think that begins by having a leader who's receptive to the community, who's willing to meet with folks, not just in an election year, but who's willing to serve the community in every way possible to help address these crises. And that's why I filed to run.
Mr. Smith, I'd like to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. And there's been allegations that your administration really is just a continuation of years and years, decades-long policies put into place back in the 1990s. And we'd like you to address that as you tell us why we ought to vote for you.
Sure. Hi, guys. I'm Paul Smith. I'm the district attorney. I've been the district attorney as the elected DA since the end of 2016 when Mr. Ross retired. I have extensive trial experience, as you've heard about. My work has garnered many awards in the field. Recently in Washington, D.C., I received a Lifetime Achievement Award for a case I did involving the Colton Clark case and the T.J. Sloan case, which was a cold murder case that was prosecuted here in Ada, Oklahoma in October of 2017. So we've been doing this a long time. You might ask, like some of you college students out there today, as you're facing the prospect of going into the real world and starting your lives and your careers, perhaps you're looking for direction. Well, almost 40 years ago, so was I. Looking for direction of what my life path would be. And through much prayer and contemplation, I came upon the verse in Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 20, which says this: "That which is altogether just shalt thou follow after, that thou mayest live, and inherit the land which the Lord thy God shall give you." And after that, I began exploring the idea that I would go to law school. I would become a lawyer. Didn't understand what all that meant, to go pursue a path of seeking justice, of pursuing justice with my career. That's what I feel I've led to, called into, and I've been doing that now for the last 33 years. Some of you all might ask, well, what does a district attorney do? Mr. Edwards touched on some of that. Well, we do a lot of trial work. We do a lot of courtroom work, representing the state and advocating for victims of crime. And we do that, and we're proud of the work that we've done there. You also must be someone who offers leadership to a 3-county district that employs over 30 employees, many prosecutors, some of which have just graduated from law school, some of which haven't had the experience in the courtroom that a career prosecutor like me has had. So they need guidance, they need training, they need inspiration, they need mentorship. My 33 years experience comes in handy because I've handled practically everything in the book from A to Z in the table of contents of criminal cases. In addition to doing trial work, the district attorney offers that leadership, that guidance, that inspiration to an office as a whole. We also represent the county elected officials in all their various legal entanglements, as Mr. Edwards has said. Interestingly enough, even though we don't practice civil work a lot, we do practice it, and we do represent the county government and offer legal assistance to the commissioners and the other elected officials every day. And we're proud of that work. And in fact, as a hallmark of that work, as a taxpayer, you'll notice that not one time in this last 28-year period that Mr. Edwards has talked about has anyone's taxes in Pontotoc County, Seminole County, or Hughes County gone up 1 penny for any judgment that was rendered by a jury verdict against the county. Well, for people who don't know what we're doing, we've done pretty well. So we also do the civil work. Now, why do I continue to do this? Well, my wife Joy and I have raised our 3 children. We're still raising one. We've had a late life blessing, Jackson, our last born, is still with us. And we've raised our children in this community, and we love this community. We love this district. And our children have grown up and they've become successful adults of their own. But many families that we see in our office come in with broken lives. And their world has been turned upside down. And they're bearing the scars and the wounds of being victimized by people in society who, as we've heard tonight, have made terrible choices. They've put their victims in a terrible condition. They've wounded them, they've injured them, they've emotionally hurt them, if not financially defrauded them. And they come into us with these broken lives and they say, help us. And so we charge people who commit those crimes against them, and we prosecute them for just outcomes, doing just the things that I told you that I feel called to do, to seek justice. And we assist those victims in those victim services every day. Contrary to what my opponent says, we enjoy working with those victims. We do inform those victims. And many of those same victims that are in court with us every day are still out there saying, Mr. Smith, we want you and your office to continue doing that work. In fact, just today I was in court on a preliminary hearing in the Caleb Bourne murder case, where Brenda Carter was tragically killed and Max and Barbara Skelton's home was burned down that night in a one-man crime spree in one night that started at a fraternity party held by a group of students at ECU. And there are many other cases. 2 weeks ago, I tried a double murder case for 2 Native American families that had their loved ones murdered behind the Seminole Walmart. And in 28 years, or excuse me, 33 years as a prosecutor, hopefully this statistic will continue, I've not lost a murder case or a homicide case in that career. You don't wake up one morning and decide, oh, I want to be district attorney. My friends think it'd be a good idea, and go in a courtroom and be able to garner that type of conviction rate before a jury, carrying the highest burden of law of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, and proving that guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. So that's what district attorneys do. That's why I want to continue doing this type of work. And I'm sorry, what was the question, Preston?
Why, there's an allegation that it's just a continuation.
28 years, and I'm just a continuation. Well, I did work for the 2 previous district attorneys, Bill Peterson and Chris Ross. I worked as Chris's first assistant. I started with Bill 28 years ago. I'm not Bill Peterson. I'm not Chris Ross, nor do I want to be. Okay? I have my own independent career, my own independent record, and while they established some policies, we've deviated from those policies. We've grown into bigger policies, better policies, and we're practicing in the district attorney's office now under my leadership. Mr. Edwards says we tried the same number of cases in the last 7 years, or 7 cases in the last 7 years. Actually, I've tried now more than that and haven't lost any of them. So what experience is he talking about? Has he tried murder cases? No. Has he tried violent rape cases? No. Has he tried a felony case? And the answer is no. He has not. He has tried juvenile cases as an attorney for a child in a child welfare proceeding or a parent. And by reputation, by what we've been told, a misdemeanor jury trial. That's a whole other set of circumstances than a career of prosecuting the kind of cases that I have over my career. So, am I Bill Peterson? Am I Chris Ross? No. I have my own independent record, my own independent ideas, and we run our office with our own policies that we've established under this administration. And I would appreciate you give us a look for your vote in November. Thank you.
Mr. Smith, we'll go to you for this first question. Mr. Edwards referred to it, and it's been widely reported that Oklahoma, regardless of whether we're tippy-top or not, we are way at the top of incarcerations. Do you think that's appropriate? And if you do, why do you think it's appropriate? If you don't think it's appropriate, what can you do as the district attorney? What do you propose to do to help us bring down that incarceration rate?
Well, it's a great question. Are we number one in incarceration? Joe Albaugh has taken issue with some of those statistics. In fact, much of the statistics that they quote, they include people that are on an ankle bracelet. They include people that are on a probationary sentence, that are on parole, that are under community sentencing. So that statistics is, first of all, a little suspect. Are we up there? Yes, we are. Our job is not so much to make policy. Our job is to enforce the laws that are already in place. But what have I done about that? Well, when Mr. Edwards was getting out of law school, or when was that? Perhaps even before that, in the 1990s, I was a pioneer in this idea of criminal justice reform. Do we have too many people in prison? Are we sending too many people to prison? I don't know. They're there because they've committed crimes and they deserve to be there. But what have we done to make a difference? I pioneered the idea of drug court in our district, along with some others. I helped co-found one of the first rural drug courts in the state of Oklahoma. I started that idea. I advocated when mental health services were being cut to the bone in Oklahoma, I advocated for a different way, that we would bring our court system into the idea of getting people mental health treatment. That we would go out with teams of people to make sure that those that suffer from serious and debilitating mental illnesses in our community, that they would have an advocate that would go to their home, operating out of an umbrella of a court system called the mental health court, to make sure they take their medication, make sure they're getting their treatment through mental health court, what's known in state statute now as the Anna McBride court system. I advocated for veterans courts, that our veterans who have gone out and sacrificed so much of their own lives, their own person, many times their body parts, in defense of our liberty, are treated a little bit better than Joe citizens who commits a crime, and that we recognize that those people are suffering from things that we can't even imagine, and that we put them in using this drug court model in a veterans court. I've advocated for truancy programs that have brought down truancy in our counties from high numbers to very low numbers, holding parents accountable and students accountable who basically blow off the law. Have I advocated for these changes to bring down the incarceration rate? Yes, I have. Will I continue to do that? Yes, I will. Because I believe that people's lives matter. I believe that the lowest of low, the sorriest of sorries, their life has value. And we should work to try to redeem that life, to change that manner of thinking, that way in which they make bad choices, and that they're taught a different way. They're educated in a different way to make better choices and to redeem themselves. So many people throughout my career, whether they did a short-term stint in incarceration, they did drug court, they did mental health court, they did veterans court, they've come back to me, sometimes even during this campaign, and said, "Do you remember me? You saved my life. Do you remember me? You sent me to drug court. Do you remember me? You were the first speaker at the drug court graduation of the very first inaugural drug court graduation. And I remember what you said about liberty. I remember when you gave us all a flag and said, this flag represents freedom. Now don't go out and squander this opportunity." And they didn't. They would say proudly, "I have a job, I have a family. Thank you, because you did your job." It's amazing the number of people that I have prosecuted that actually come back and say, "Thank you, Mr. Smith. We appreciate what you did. We support you, not only what you did for me, what you did for others, and what you're doing in this election as district attorney." Thank you.
Mr. Edwards, what do you have to say about our incarceration rates, and what would you do as DA?
First, I'd like to respond to a statement Mr. Smith made. First, he stated that, falsely stated that I've not tried a felony jury trial. You know, his false statements carry a lot of weight, and they're frequent. Just a month or so ago, he published in the newspaper that he couldn't find where I've done even a single jury trial. That he had his staff, many of whom are sitting here today, look into it, conduct opposition campaign research. Folks, I've tried 3 jury trials that have involved just Pontotoc County's district attorney's office. One of them was a felony jury trial for child abuse that I think we set a record for the shortest deliberation for a jury verdict. 3 minutes before the jury came back and decided not guilty. Folks, it's that sort of mindset that really demonstrates the danger of not having an elected representative of the community in our office. And folks, it's actions like that that really reinforce my decision to venture into politics, to put myself out here to try to help the community. My belief and my passion is this: if you're a strong leader, the hallmark of that needs to be good listening. Listening to the community. And if somebody has something critical to say, somebody doesn't like a decision you made, hear them out, respond to it, explain it. As district attorney, you're always going to upset at least one person in every decision you make. But if it's a sound one, you should be able to do that, and do it in a passionate manner that also is truthful, that is also rooted in integrity. Otherwise, we're never going to be on the pathway to justice. Concerning incarceration rates, Oklahoma undoubtedly is #1, not just in the country, but globally. As I mentioned before, Seminole County, where my opponent practices, is #2 per capita in its incarceration rates in Oklahoma. What needs to be done about this is we need to have smarter prosecution strategies. As a defense attorney, I dealt one-on-one with folks who were addicted to substances or who suffered from mental health issues. And in that level of advocacy, I tried to address the root cause of their problems. They'd tell me, Josh, that law enforcement officer just had it out for me. Well, yeah, he's arrested you twice before. You're in it. I mean, come on. He knows you now. And you're going to continue to have this problem as long as you have this addiction. So why don't we take the novel approach and fix the addiction? We have a tremendous amount of resources here. From our drug courts to, if you're Native American, the substance abuse available, or substance abuse treatment options available through the Chickasaw Nation. If you're low income, we also have public health services available. And as district attorney, I think we need to put greater emphasis on these treatment alternatives, especially earlier in a person's contact with the justice system. I think that's the best way to address this #1 global incarceration rate. Because the surrounding states they don't have more crime than we do. They incarcerate a whole lot fewer people than we do. And frankly, I'd rather my tax dollars be spent not on prisons, but the schools where my wife works. I agree with what Mr. John said. Education really helps with this stuff. I think that's worth investing in, not prisons. As district attorney, I want to actually have a veterans court. Mr. Smith mentioned that he's a pioneer of one. We don't have a dedicated veterans court in this district. That's something I want to change. 2.5 years ago in this auditorium, we had a forum to try to get a veterans court off the ground. Mr. Smith wasn't here. I was. And following that forum, I met with law enforcement. I met with judges. I tried to figure out, how do we get this program going? How do we get a dedicated program for veterans off the ground? The answer, I believe, lies in the district attorney's office. 2.5 years and nothing's been done. What I want to do, immediately upon coming into office, is utilize the existing law to create a diversionary program for veterans. The district attorney's office now can do a deferred prosecution agreement. Basically, upon arrest, they can say, you know what, instead of filing charges, we're going to put you in this deferred prosecution agreement program where you agree to be supervised under these terms, and we won't file charges on you. And we can help them with seeking treatment. We can help them by making sure that they have appropriate oversight. And best of all, we can do it in a manner that doesn't really cost taxpayer money. I've reached out to veterans, I've reached out to members of the service, and I've asked them, usually because they ask me, hey, what are we going to do about getting an actual veterans court program going? And I told them this idea. I said, well, one of the things that we would need to actually have supervision and not to cost money is, and what I found in representing veterans is, they have a much better connection if they have someone to talk to, a mentor who's been through similar circumstances. So I've asked these veterans, would you be willing to volunteer in this program and serve as a mentor for somebody? I've yet to find somebody who will tell me no to that question. Folks, there are a number of people, even here at the university in Veteran Support Services, that are willing to help, that are willing to get this program off the ground. Talk is nice. Talk of pioneering is nice, but let's do something. Let's get this program going. As district attorney, I want to do that. That's something that I think will help immediately. And furthermore, I think as we're looking at the incarceration rate and issues more broadly, we need to consider and be mindful of the alternatives that we have instead of just sending someone to prison. Drug courts are a great one. And I've been to a drug court graduation too, and it was an extraordinarily moving experience. What frustrated me at the end, these people go through this program. It's a 2 to 3 year long program. And it starts with meetings every single day. They've got meetings literally every single day whenever the program begins. 2 to 3 year commitment, and many leave that program, about half on the day I went, without a clean record, with that scarlet F following them around. And I asked why. The answer? Prosecutors wouldn't agree to give them a clean slate. Folks, that's not justice, and that's not helping our community. And as district attorney, I'm ready to make these changes. I'm ready to acknowledge that we have these problems in our community and work towards making things better. That's why I hope, for the first time in 28 years, you elect a district attorney and that you elect me. Thank you.
I know I promised you 7:30. We got 7:32. Will you indulge us for 10 more minutes? Is that all right? Okay. So, I can vouch for my brethren of the law here. They had good legal educations, because you can tell that they can't say anything in less than 10 minutes. We're going to give each of them one final question and a wrap-up, and you get 5 minutes apiece, and that's it. All right? We really want to know what your position is on medical marijuana and perhaps recreational marijuana, what that does to our community, and what you think changes need to happen to accommodate that at the DA's office. Mr. Smith, we're going to go ahead and let you go first, and if you'll do your wrap-up comments as well, and then Mr. Edwards will give you the final say.
Thank you. Well, Josh, first I'll apologize if our information was wrong. We got that information from your colleagues in the bar, perhaps from your own law partner. So if you try to keep jury trials that are felonies, we apologize for that. And we won't make that mistake again. We've been listening to you talk on this campaign trail all this time and haven't heard that statement before. So again, offer our apologies if that information was incorrect. The question was medical marijuana. I have a grandson. His name is Dempsey. And I love little Dempsey. But Dempsey's a special needs boy. And his parents have grappled with everything under the sun to try to make him better. Recently, they tried this, I always get this wrong, CBD or CBD, however you say that, oil, and it helps him. Why would I not be an advocate for those things? While campaigning, I ran into a lady, elderly lady who was in her 90s. She told me a story about her husband who had his life prolonged by cannabis pills. By taking cannabis pills, it stimulated his appetite, it helped his condition. He was able to prolong his life about 3 more years. Why would anyone be against something like that that helps people? Legitimate medical marijuana usage. And I do support that. I support that wholeheartedly because, perhaps like some others said, I see the benefit to that. Am I for the present medical marijuana law that we have? No, I can't say that I endorse it because it offers so many loopholes, so many things that are strange to an idea of enforcing any sort of meaningful drug policy. For example, an officer can stop someone and they can say, oh, I have this stash of marijuana. I don't have a medical marijuana card for it, but I have a headache. I have a stomach ache, and this is supposed to make me better. If they can define that as a legitimate medical condition, they're okay under the law. Is that what we want in terms of enforcement? I would submit that we do not. So, am I opposed to legitimate marijuana medical use? Not at all. Am I in favor of our present medical marijuana? No, I am not. It makes the enforcement of legitimate marijuana laws almost impractical, period. And we've seen through our drug courts and through juvenile courts that marijuana is what's sometimes referred as a gateway substance, that children at a very young age begin to use marijuana, and which leads to harder drugs and harder drugs and harder drugs. It's best to stem the tide of that if we can, which leads to a discussion of recreational marijuana. Recreational marijuana, I hope we never go to in Oklahoma. Honestly, from a DA's perspective, it would make it a whole lot easier on us if we did legalize it, because it would make the enforcement either black or white. It either is illegal or it's not, rather than the quagmire that we're in right now with medical marijuana. So, do we really want more drug and alcohol-related offenses? I would submit to you that we do not. In 98 to 99% of every crime that we see, there is a component of substance abuse, either directly or indirectly contributing to the causes, the reasons why persons commit crimes. The two murder cases I mentioned to you that have recently been involved in, the one today, the Caleb Warren case, the one at the Seminole Walmart 2 weeks ago, what were some of the underlying causes? Substance abuse. In almost every case we see that, and it's unfortunate. We don't need more crimes that are committed when substance abuse is a part of it. We need legitimate drug enforcement laws. Does that mean we lock everybody up for a marijuana joint? Of course not, and we don't do that. You won't find anybody in prison for 10 years on a medical marijuana joint or on a joint period. That doesn't happen. That's a misnomer. That's a urban legend. There isn't anybody in prison for a joint of marijuana. The laws have changed, making that completely impossible in the first place, and we weren't doing it even before the laws were changed. Those people were treated, those people were offered probation, those people were given opportunities to change and to rehabilitate themselves from a life of substance abuse. And the crimes that are committed to support drug habits. That's what's so dangerous about so many drug offenses and drug usage, is they lead to other crimes. Crimes of larceny, crimes of burglarizing homes, crimes of violence that are stemmed from substance abuse usage. So that's a big problem. Now, to wrap it up, I'm Paul Smith. I'm the district attorney. I've proven over a career of a lifetime of service, of a passion and a devotion to justice that I talked about earlier. That's why I want to continue to be district attorney, because the work is not yet done. So many families in the communities of Seminole, Hughes, and Pontotoc counties are counting on our office, are counting on me personally to handle their case, to be their champion of justice in the courtroom, to advocate for the completion of their case, to advocate for their loved one, for their person who's been victimized. And I so want to be that person that gets justice in the courtroom for them, and I intend to do that. On November 6th, you'll have a choice. You can choose between, as Mr. Edwards said, a career prosecutor. I am. I love it. I enjoy doing it. That's why I continue to do it. It is a lifetime of service. Or you can choose someone who's not yet prosecuted, even yet, a traffic ticket, whose trial experience compared to what our office has and what I offer pales in comparison. To someone who's been spending his lifetime in the courtroom advocating for victims and advocating for reforms, advocating for people, because people matter. Your vote matters, and justice matters, and I ask for your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Marijuana. Let's start with medical marijuana first. That's already been voted upon by the people. As district attorney, I don't make the laws, but I am going to enforce them, and I'm certainly going to honor the will of the people. Ladies and gentlemen, the biggest obstacle to meaningful justice reform have been prosecutors. there were a host of bills this last legislative cycle that would have actually decreased the number of people in our prison populations, and those provisions were gutted and derailed by prosecutors. Concerning medical marijuana, the people weighed in. We had a referendum by the people, and if that's not democracy, I don't know what is. I will honor and respect that as district attorney. Concerning recreational marijuana, right now, under our existing laws, marijuana is treated, the range of punishment for marijuana is essentially the same as the range of punishment for possession of methamphetamine. And I suspect that if I did a straw poll in here, people wouldn't think that that is fair or just. Possession of marijuana carries up to 1 year in county jail. Generally, what happens if you get caught with a joint? You're looking at a 1 year deferred sentence, fines and costs in the amount of $1,400, give or take, and 12 months of DA probation. So you pay the DA's office $40 a month for the privilege of not really supervising. In other words, that one joint costs about $2,000, and if you have any missteps, if you commit any other infractions, they actually can put you in jail up to 1 year. That's the real reason why prosecutors don't want to see medical marijuana or recreational marijuana or any form of legalization from it, because frankly, it makes that office a ton of money. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't think that marijuana is the problem whenever folks talk about crime in the community. I don't know of anyone who's committed a murder while under the influence of marijuana, at least not one's been prosecuted here. I don't think marijuana is the biggest threat to our community. What I would like to see is us take the resources, the staff, the attorneys that we're using to focus on essentially collection of all this money, and use it to prosecute violent crimes. Use it to prosecute those crimes which puts our community most at risk. And I think that it's time we have this change of thinking. And it's going to take a change in thinking in order to solve our incarceration problem. The reason why I filed, the reason why I put my name on the ballot, it's not because I wanted to be in politics. That's the furthest thing from it. I enjoy being a lawyer. I enjoy being an advocate. I like standing up for the little person in the courtroom and being their voice. And ladies and gentlemen, when I filed on April 13th, I did so to give our community a voice. 1990 was the last time that our community had a choice in who serves in this office. And it is a very powerful office. 95% of criminal cases are resolved not through trials, but through plea negotiations with prosecutors. And what I've found in the 8 years that I practiced here as a lawyer in Pontotoc County, in 75% of the jury trials that were conducted by our DA's office, the defendant was either acquitted of all charges or was found guilty but given a lesser sentence by the jury than what was recommended by prosecutors. Think about that for a minute. Our prosecutors are out of touch with what our community thinks is just and fair. And whenever the prosecutors set up a case and request or require or recommend an exorbitant amount of jail time, it doesn't serve justice to the community. And it darn sure contributes to our incarceration problem. I aim to fix that as district attorney. I want to provide greater oversight and leadership to our DA's office. I want to meet with each assistant district attorney on at least a monthly basis to review their cases and make sure that the recommendations are not just fair but also consistent between attorneys and among the counties. I think we need a district attorney who will actually be present at work, who you'll know of and see in town on more than just contested election years. I filed to run to give everyone in this room a choice and an opportunity to express their voice in the courtroom. And on November 6th, I ask that you elect me, Josh Edwards, as district attorney, instead of relying upon Governor Fallon's choice for that position.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for helping us to celebrate Constitution Day in the best way I know how. To hear from candidates who want to represent you and to make your ability to make a wise choice more possible. Please join me in thanking all of our candidates for coming tonight.